Hey everybody, welcome to episode 42 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about modifying cars with an extended warranty, misfires, fuel additives, and oil extractors.
A user via email says, "Hey Paul, got a couple quick questions for you. Hoping you could help me and whomever else might have the same questions. What are your thoughts on oil extractors on VWs, specifically the MK7 GTI? And would you recommend using fuel additives like BG44K for injector cleaner? At idle, my car has random mini vibrations and I'm hoping to get rid of. My car is tuned to stage 1.5 with ED, and I have a drop-in AFE power air filter in Denso IKH24 spark plugs. The rough idle was present since stock. Thanks in advance."
Okay, Ishmael, in regards to oil extractors, let's start with that one. So oil extractors, I don't see anything wrong with oil extractors. You know, as long as you're extracting the majority of the oil. Keep in mind, whenever you use an oil extractor, you're never really going to get it all. Although in draining oil, you won't get it all either. But it is a little bit different because you're probably not going to get all the stuff in the pan. The one thing I'll say about that is when you use an oil extractor as opposed to draining the oil, if you have any fragments or anything laying down in the pan, the one downside to using an oil extractor is in that hypothetical situation, you're not going to get rid of any of those contaminants, dirt, metal, whatever it is in that could potentially end up in the pan. You're not going to see or get out. So that's the one downside to extractors, but in general, I don't see anything wrong with them at all. When we start talking about things like 44K, I'm personally a fan of BG products. I think they make nice stuff. 44K especially is something that's good. I don't think 44K is going to solve your problem, and mostly because the cars, MK7s, are, I don't know how many miles you have, but it's probably a pretty new car, which means if you're having issues like that running issue, which happens on all MK7s, which I've covered before, and as things are starting to age a little bit, it seems like it might actually be an ignition coil issue that's causing those cars to run like that. There have been some revisions to the ignition coils on MK7. So I'll put a link to the MK7 ignition coils here with the most current version, where you can check out the most current version that they have. And that might be an option for you to replace and get the most current version to see if that resolves your issue. But 44K, it's a nice product. I'm just not sure it's going to help with this specific situation. But yeah, hopefully that helps you.
Ariel Gurgle via YouTube says, "Whenever I log my MK6 GTI and rev it in neutral, I get a few misfire counts randomly through the cylinders. No more than 3 or 4 counts. Any idea what this could be and if it's normal?"
Ariel, the misfire counting isn't normal. Misfires are never going to be normal for an engine. Shouldn't be a thing that you see whenever you rev your engine, you get a misfire count. You didn't mention your mileage on your MK6, but they do, obviously you have a TSI engine. A couple things to be aware of. I have an article that I wrote about common problems for TSI engines, which I'll link to here, and you can check that out. A few things you want to look at. Carbon would be one. That's generally cold start misfire, so that's probably not your issue, but it is something to consider. Ignition coils and plugs, assuming they're new. If you haven't replaced ignition coils and plugs, you should look into that. And then the next step would be, in TSIs have issues with fuel injectors. That's also discussed in that common problems article, along with ignition coils and plugs as well. If you have an injector issue, that would potentially cause that. But misfires are always never going to be normal, so you're going to have to maybe track down what it is. Obviously, the misfire is not bad enough yet to really either set a light or cause an issue. But if it's registering on the misfire counter, then there's something going on there, and it's just a matter of, number one, is it bad enough that you want to start to track it down? And number two, what specifically is causing the problem? The one thing I'll say about that is, if you have a misfire counter going, if it's on all random cylinders, then it'll give you a better idea of something going on. If it's on a single cylinder, then you can probably look and hone in on that one cylinder, start swapping coils and plugs, and then if that doesn't resolve it, then you can narrow it down to probably injector being the source of your issue. So hopefully that helps you and resolves your problem.
David Van via YouTube says, don't you lose a bit of low-end torque with Resonator Delete? I'm interested in getting one, but I just don't know if it's worth losing power for a slight sound increase.
Okay, David, so this was commented on the information video we have talking about MK7 Golf R Resonator Deletes. This would pretty much apply to everything, but in general, this would be the case on all cars. First of all, turbo cars, the engine back pressure, first of all, the turbo creates back pressure on the engine. So in theory, you could technically just run straight, no downpipe, no cat. And that it would not be an issue. But even if you were to worry about turbo back pressure on the turbo, removing the resonator is such a negligible difference in the back pressure on the system anyway, that it's not going to create a big gain in any way, one way or the other, power gain or detraction to really create any difference. I mean, think about if you have the stock cat, which sounds like you probably have the stock downpipe. So if you have the stock cat, that creates way more back pressure on the system than any resonator is ever going to do. The only thing a resonator is going to do is kind of revert the air and to create some issues where you don't have resonance problems. So I would not worry about changing the power at all by adding a Resonator Delete.
Tom Stepanewski via email says, I recently bought my 2010 CC. It had 35,000 on it. It currently has almost 40,000, so a service trip is looming. What does that entail, and do I start worrying about the carbon buildup? Also, do I do the intake manifold recall / replacement or wait? Also, I noticed these unsightly dirt marks on the right side, much less so on the passenger side. They appear after a week or two of driving. We don't get a ton of rain, but since we get some lately, I'm not certain if this comes right after the car dries or after a few days. Is the seal on the trim piece leaking? Also, bottom of front / rear door, pictures below.
Tom, so first let's start with the carbon buildup. At 40,000 miles, carbon buildup isn't going to be a major issue yet, but it is something that eventually you're going to have to address. If you're looking to have the manifold thing done, the manifold recall, I would suggest that when you do that, have them clean your valves. Usually, as we've talked about before, usually have around an hour, maybe 2 hours max of labor in addition to the manifold replacement and everything if you're doing it free. So you should only expect to pay roughly probably $100 or $200 additional for that cleaning. The one thing I'll say is, yeah, if you can hold off, maybe wait 10,000 miles. I'm not sure what the parameters are for that recall, so you'd have to look into it to see if you waited, if you'd be able to get that still done at that time. As long as that's not an issue, you might consider just waiting until 50 and then get the manifold done and the cleaning done all at the same time, and then you'll know that you'll prolong the life of that carbon buildup another 50 or 60 or 70,000 miles. So that would be my advice on that. When we talk about those marks, so I actually, before I got the MK7 that you see in all of our other DIY videos that we bought for that project car, I actually owned a 13cc, and I'll post a picture to it here just so you can check it out. I had the exact same issues with the dirt on the door on the bottom, and here's why I believe it happens, and I'm pretty sure this is what the deal is. The CCs have frameless doors, so since you don't have a door frame to deflect the water or anything, all the drains and everything run through the moldings, and if you look at the bottom of the door on a CC, there are these rubber outlets, and that's where the drains come out. And so what you see is actually where the dirt comes out of through the drains. And I don't know if it's picking up also part of the dirt from the drains themselves. You know, sometimes rubber, when it gets wet, you know, sometimes it'll let off a little bit of like coating or something. I don't know exactly specifically what makes up those smudge marks, but that is a pretty standard thing for a lot of those CCs. I don't know if it's every model. I know, again, the one I had the exact same deal. What you have on that door molding. I'm not really sure what that is. That may be something dripping off the mirror or something. I can't say, but the ones on the bottom on the rockers are definitely related to the draining through the doors and all those things, and really nothing you're gonna be able to do about that except for just clean it frequently, because it's the nature of how the system's set up to deflect water.
The Sean SC via YouTube says, I got the extra warranty, 10-year, 100,000 mile, on Mark 7R. Will I basically void any or all of the warranty if I add intake extra?
Okay, so Sean, I've covered to death warranties, modified cars and warranties, so I don't really want to touch too much on that with this, but I'll start with this. Any modification you do to a car has potential to void your warranty, period. Doesn't matter what it is or what anybody says. If it's not originally on the car, it has potential to void the warranty unless it's an approved accessory by VW, which is the only things that have no potential. So if you don't want to void your warranty 100% and you're not comfortable with it, then you shouldn't add any mods at all. I generally don't, that's not the way I feel. I modify cars, my own and anybody else's, and I don't feel like that's something that I need to be super worried about. But if you want to be 100%, that's the deal. I wanted to touch on this because the other component is you said you bought a warranty, and what I wanted to touch on with that was extended warranties. Even if you buy them from a dealer, this is a big misconception for people. When they buy an extended warranty at the time of purchase, they think they're buying a warranty from the manufacturer. But keep in mind, the dealers are not Volkswagen. They're not corporately owned. They're all privately owned. So the contractor selling you, because Volkswagen doesn't even offer extended warranties on cars unless you're buying a CPO car, which is certified pre-owned, they don't offer those warranties. So what you bought was through a third party. Now, hopefully you bought it through Fidelity, which is the warranty I always recommend to people who have VWs or Audis, because they very closely resemble the factory warranty. Obviously that will vary depending on which warranty you buy because they have different levels, but Fidelity as a brand generally is the one I recommend. But outside of that, those third parties, when it comes to modified cars, are going to be a lot less sensitive than the manufacturer, mostly because they don't really have the bandwidth to even understand modified cars. So I'm not sure they're going to be super stringent about knowing. Now, if the place you bring your vehicle to get serviced throws you under the bus, and they may then cause you to have an issue with a warranty claim through a third party thing, but it wouldn't be an issue directly related to the extended warranty. That was really the main part I wanted to touch on, because I think that that's a big misconception, that people think that when you buy a contract like that from the dealer, you're actually getting something from Volkswagen, and that's just not the case. So understanding that that's the deal will help you in making that decision, so that you know, hey, when I'm out of my factory warranty, most likely modifying a car out of that factory warranty is not going to result in any issues. Now, again, that's all relative to who you're dealing with at the place that services your vehicle. So that's a decision that you have to make to form a relationship with somebody who's going to be able to put you in a position that you're going to be happy with to service the vehicle. And building a relationship along the way in servicing your vehicle with that place is going to be the way to establish that relationship. The biggest thing that we always saw at dealers was when you have a customer, if you're, let's say you're bringing it to the dealer for those repairs, as a customer, when you only bring your vehicle to a dealer to only get work done for warranty work, you're not establishing a relationship with them. You're establishing that you actually don't want to have a relationship with them, that you only want work from them when it's free for you and not when you have to pay for it. So most dealers are really competitively priced now, at least smart ones are. So that's something that to consider depending on your area, that the dealer might not be out of the question, as once they used to be just completely outrageously overpriced relative to the market. That's come a lot more in line now, and a lot of dealers who are smarter are recognizing that they need to be in line. And so giving them the opportunity to have your business is going to form a relationship with you that's going to make sure that when the time comes that they have the ability to help you to the best of their ability, they're actually going to do so. It's hard to ask somebody to bend over backwards who doesn't give back. So every relationship is a give-take, and that is no exception. So hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully it wasn't too rambly. Thank you for watching episode 42 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. If you have any comments about the questions answered in this show, be sure to leave in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.